and welcome back to Morgs Menu. So today is going to be another copycat restaurant type of video where I show you how I make my favorite dishes from a Mexican restaurant at home. Now for me that is Arroz con Pollo, which is a very simple dish. Now typically it's very basic. You just have your rice, chicken on top, and a nice cheese sauce. You can add, I've seen it where restaurants add certain vegetables. You can add beans on the side, really however you want to personally make it. I've just done a lot of testing, especially during quarantine when a lot of the restaurants weren't open, and just kind of figuring out how to make it like I like it at home. So I figured I'd go ahead and share with you how I put it all together. So as I mentioned, I did a lot of testing on a lot of these recipes, and to be honest, a lot of them come inspired from TikTok recipes I've seen, Pinterest recipes I've seen, just kind of different things I've seen on the internet. And I've tried a couple different things, found some things I definitely don't like and definitely didn't like, and kind of just compiled a couple of them together. So all of the inspirational type recipes that I found, I'll link down below, so if you're interested in any of those. But of course, as always, I'll show you what I do in this video as far as the steps that I chose to take in the description box down below as well. So let's go ahead and start on the ingredients. So for this dish, as I mentioned, there's kind of three moving parts for it. So you of course have your rice as the base, chicken, and then just cheese sauce. So we're going to be making all of that kind of homemade. So for the chicken, I just have a large chicken breast here that I've thawed and it's ready to go. So I'm basically just going to very simply kind of spice this. You can put as much seasoning and whatever seasonings that you want to on it. I just found sometimes if I put too much spice on it, it just takes away from the flavors that I want of the cheese sauce and everything else. So for this, I'm just going to add a little bit of this chili lime seasoning from Trader Joe's. You could just use regular chili powder if you have it. I'm also going to be using cumin and paprika, garlic powder and onion powder, and then of course salt and pepper. I will put the measurements close to what I do down below, but I'm really not measuring. I'm just going to, like I said, lightly season this. And we're going to be cooking the chicken in a cast iron skillet. I just think it gets a really nice kind of crust that way. And the first thing we're actually going to start cooking though is the rice. Now I've tried the rice a bunch of times, and this is probably the thing that's given me the most trouble because I'm trying to get that good flavor, but without overpowering the rice too much. So I'm actually going to be baking the rice in the oven. It just seems to work. Plus I can put it in there and not have to worry about it, and it can just do its thing while I'm worrying about the cheese sauce and the chicken. So for this, you're just going to need some regular white rice. I think long grain rice works the best for the kind of texture that you want. I have some jasmine rice. Whatever you work is fine. I have found though, when I did this with brown rice, it didn't turn out right, and because you have to change the ratios of the liquid, so try and get some white rice. To cook it, I'm basically going to be cooking it in chicken stock, as I've talked about many times, just the amount of water that you would normally use for rice. I'm going to be using chicken stock. And then for the seasonings, I'm going to be adding in some of this everything but the elote seasoning from Trader Joe's. It is salt, chili pepper, cheese, chipotle, and cumin. I just think it would be a good addition to the rice. I'm also going to be adding some additional cumin to that, salt and pepper. And then lastly, I'm going to be adding in a tablespoon or two of this paste salsa. A lot of different recipes for the rice that I've seen had you use either tomato paste or tomato sauce. I just found it that it was just too overpowering, but if I just use a little bit of the salsa, it gives it a good flavor but doesn't turn it into like a really tomato-based rice. And then the last one we're going to be working on is the cheese sauce. You can kind of alter a lot of the ingredients in this based on the flavor, or based on how spicy you want it, and all that type of stuff. But we're going to start with a whole can of evaporated milk. You can use heavy cream. I've used that before. You could even use like milk and a bunch of cornstarch if you want. But I'm also going to add a tablespoon of cornstarch into this as well to get it the right creamy texture that you want. We're also going to be using a combination of sharp cheddar cheese as well as pepper jack cheese. For the ingredients, we're just going to be adding in some mild diced green chilies. You could use hot if you want it really spicy, and a little bit of jalapeno. And then for spices, I'm going to be adding a little bit of chili powder, salt and pepper, and garlic powder and onion powder because I feel like that makes everything better. And you can add, like if you want to make it fancy and put it in a nice pretty dish, you could add kind of like a pico de gallo mixture on top. I'm not going to do that because we're going to be pouring the cheese sauce directly over the chicken, but you do whatever you want to do to add to it. So, alright, so first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get everything prepped. So the first thing we're going to start with is making the rice. The rice is kind of a ratio depending on however many people you are cooking for or how much rice you really want. I'm going to be doing 2 servings as usual. So I'm going to do 1 part rice and 2 parts of the broth, add in the seasoning, and like I said, 1 or 2 tablespoons of the salsa, depending on how strong you want that flavor. And then I'm just going to cover that with foil and throw that in the oven to bake at 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. You kind of want to watch it. It may take a little less time depending on how much rice you use, or more time, but just kind of keep an eye on it while it's in the oven and pull it out when you see that it's ready. And you can always just set it to the side and leave the foil on it if it's ready before the other stuff. Once that's in, we'll go ahead and prep everything else. So I'll basically just go ahead and season the chicken, get the pan going on the stove. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of onion into my mixture. Like I said, you can add any types of vegetables to this dish as you want. I typically add like bell peppers and onions, but I don't have a bell pepper, so we're just doing onions today. So I'm just going to cook this in the cast iron skillet next to the chicken once the chicken's basically done, just to get it a little bit soft. And then all the rest is just dicing up the jalapeno, shredding the cheese, and then I'll check back in to walk you through the rest of the cooking process. Alrighty, so now that we've got everything prepped, we're going to move on to cooking everything. So once your rice has about 10-ish minutes or so left, go ahead and start getting your whole stovetop surface ready. So I sliced my chicken before cooking. I just think it's easier to cook it, cooks faster, all that kind of stuff. You can do it whichever way you want. But I've got a little bit of avocado oil on my cast iron pan, heating up at medium heat. It'll take a couple minutes to get hot. And then as soon as I put the chicken in, I'm then going to then start the cheese sauce. So for that pan, I'm going to start it at about medium-high heat. Go ahead and get an entire can of evaporated milk and a tablespoon of cornstarch bubbling. Once it starts bubbling, you can start mixing in your cheese, and I'll then probably turn it down just a little bit so it doesn't get too hot. So you'll slowly mix in your cheese. Once it's nice and creamy, you're going to want to use a whisk for that just to make sure everything blends nice together. Once that's done, you can add in your spices, and then I'm also going to add in the jalapenos and diced green chilies. And then you just let it simmer basically until everything is ready to go and all the flavors will combine from the different additions that you added in, and it'll be good to go. And then for the chicken, like I said, we're just gonna cook that. Once the chicken is almost done, I'm then gonna throw in the onions and let those just kind of cook for just a couple of minutes to get them a little bit softer before we start eating them. So go ahead and get that process started. Rude. Alright, here's the final product all plated, so you can kind of see, even though I covered it in a ton of cheese sauce, but we've got our little rice layer, onions, and then there's chicken hidden under there somewhere, along with a ton of cheese sauce. This made a lot extra, so it'll be good to have some on the side for some chips and salsa, but if you're making this for even like 4 or 5 people, you don't even need to double the cheese sauce because this is really entirely too much for 2 people, but oh well. And here are our 2 plates. Now, as you can see, I did one with 2 scoops and one with 1 scoop, so leave me a comment down below on which one you think mine is. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it was helpful. If you have a similar recipe that you were looking to make at home, this is just really delicious and really is not that difficult, especially because you can kind of break up some of the stuff in the oven and then only 2 things on the stovetop. If you have any questions on the recipes, as I said, I'll link the original kind of inspiration ones down below, but I'll also link the exact steps and measurements for the most part that I did. If you have not yet followed me on Instagram, make sure you follow me there so you can get more content throughout the week as well as channel updates and all that good stuff. If you're new to my channel and haven't yet subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos that I post on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks again for watching Morgs Menu and hope you have a great day. Bye guys.